This is If My People Bible Reading Part 163, um, First Chronicles. Now, as you follow your Bible, most everyone on that end over there, you guys, are having to go back and forth in your Bible, and I've mentioned this just only a few times, and here I am at number 163 already. But I think I need to mention again. This goes way back to David, so we're going to start with David again. Uh, and the reason is that we put this listed in our Bible, this one, and this is the third edition. The first edition, I had it like the rest of the Bibles, and I started reading the Bible more and more and more. I'm thinking, no, no, this is not making too much sense. Why are almost all the Bibles in the world Chronicles and a great number of other books of like why did I put Job, book of Job first instead of Genesis? Because that's what was first written, that was first published, that's what's first put in the scroll. And this starts with David, which is, yes, it's way off, but it ends. It's where it ends. It's when you write a biography on someone, and they live from 0 to 92, and you publish the book, and the book is not published until the person passes away. So the book should be disseminated or sold among the public after the person passes away because that's when they passed away. So the public didn't see anything that's in the book of First and Second Chronicles until it was finished. And if you read this, the way it's written, and you could see it and when you read the Bible and you've written it, you've handwritten it, which I've handwritten, and then I've typed it, and then I've done an audible version of the Bible for the blind, word for word, and then the commentaries and so forth. And when you go through it in such detail, not what you get in the institutionalized churches, and not what you get from the Orthodox rabbiism or the rabbi, um, because they study so many other books. They study as many books, even more than the Mormon Church does, which they do their added in pearl of wisdom and of great price and so forth. It's the Yahweh says He warns you against don't add or subtract to it, which they've done. And so Chronicles is important because Ezra Ezra wrote it. You could see it when a writer of books, when someone reads what I do, a lot of what I do, you can read it without my signature, and then you could say, "Well, Bruce wrote that." When I tell stupid jokes, they're usually the same stupid style. Someone said, "Did Bruce tell you that one?" That's one of Bruce's jokes. Um, so that's why. So we wanted to explain that. So First Chronicles is really all about David. It's just a repeat, but there's some cool stuff in there that I wanted to bring up. First of all, it starts off with we're back in Genesis again, and Ezra thought it was pretty important. Now, why would this be repeated one, two, three times now in the Word? It just says Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Yared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah, because it's telling the story of Yeshua, man appointed mortal, sorrow, blessed Elohim coming down, teaching, and his death shall bring Methuselah, because he died the year of the flood. The despairing Lamech, who died, rest. That's Yeshua all over the place. And it mentions all these names. First Chronicles is full of people's names. Have you ever seen anything of such great detail of your family or anybody, even the Queen of England? They have a lot of people in their past that they don't mention them. When you do a lot of research on her, which I did when I was younger, just like the Kennedy family. The Kennedy family withheld John F. Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy's younger, or actually older sisters, and one of them was had some mental problems, severe mental problems. And I didn't even find that stuff out. Still, I started doing study in state of Missouri at the mental health facility called the Insane Asylum Number 4, which is located in Farmington, Missouri. And I found some grave sites there, and I started going through these gravesite numbers and records of there. And Missouri was, that particular place in Farmington was famous for lobotomies, and they were practicing it in the 30s. They were practicing it, and all their mistakes, which was horrible. They drilled a hole in your forehead, and while you were awake, they burned holes in it, and then they stuck probes in it until trying to stop your problems, and they killed some people died. Now, whether they were murdered or they died in operations, I don't know. All I know is these grave sites are all out there, hundreds of them. And the experience, and there was a site that we dug up that was full of animals and dogs that were all just dumped in the same gravesite area. That was weird. But where I'm getting off with this Kennedy thing is she had this similar type of treatment done on her in the 30s, and it failed. And the Kennedy family withheld that. And the royal family of England, they withheld their side of the family that had a little problem with mental illness and so forth. They didn't want the public to see that this pureness in the blue bloods had such serious problems, DNA alterations and DNA failures. What am I bringing this up now? What's this got to do with Chronicles? Because when you're reading First Chronicles, you're reading all about incredible history, a lot of detail, typical Ezra style. And it goes through the, let's see if I can give you an update here. You should be going through, and I've told you to read this and keep up with it, but you may not have read this first. So let's go to down the road here, chapter 24 in Chronicles. It starts mentioning families in particular names, and in it mentions, and before that it mentions the sons of Ishmael. So it mentions the 12 tribe names, and we all know who the 12 tribes are, right? We all know. But then it mentions in First Chronicles, we go back to First Chronicle again. I hate to do that to you, but we go back to chapter 1. It mentions verse 29. And these were their descendants, the sons of Ishak and Ishmael, the sons of Hagar. Hagar, this is the other 12 tribes. Nebaioth, Kedar, Abil, Midsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, excuse me, Hadad, Tema, Jetu, Naphish, and Kedemah. It mentions the details of their family and their lineage and their sons and great sons and daughters and all this other stuff. Well, why am I mentioning that in Chronicles? It's gonna all go together here in a minute. There's some stuff in Chronicles that you need to understand. When we get into Revelation 4:10 later on, remember what I'm telling you now. The 24 elders bowed down and cast their crowns to Yeshua, to Yahweh, Elohim. And there have been books and gobs of super religious people writing stuff about who are the 24 elders. Oh, well, that's the disciples, and that's the prophets, and that's the people, and they added them all up, and it's 24. Well, it doesn't fit that way very much at all. But remember, I've told you twice now that there's a promise in the millennium to come. There's a promise that Israel will be restored. We all know that. All the churches talk about it. All the Hebrew roots talks about it, right? And most of them, and the rabbi, they get all kinds of odd deals, but they talk about things like that, that Israel is Jews and so forth. But we know Israel is Israel, the 12 tribes, that we know the 12 tribes is Israel. We know that. But it also talks about, and Yahweh says, I will promise you one third. He's not saying everything is Israel, the 12 tribes. He said they are one third. Israel will get Israel the land. But another third will be south and west, which is the Egyptian area, the western promise, the western land and the western peoples that inherit the land, the promise, and the northern ones, the Syrian areas, the Syriacs. In that area, there is a promise. Well, lo and behold, guess where these 12 tribes from Ishmael went? They went the north, in the north area, not north, straight up North Pole, but like Syria, Turkey, all those areas. They're going to be blessed. And here we're reading in Chronicles, these mentions and names and tribes are all given in great detail. Is it given in great detail just to say it? Or does it mean something later on? So when we go to Revelation 4:10 and the 24 elders, we know who 12 of them are. We're pretty sure about that. But the other 12? Don't cast out your ideas that everyone that lives in the Middle East that's not Jewish, not Christian, is all going straight to hell. Yahweh offered his love of the entire world and all those hear and obey him through his Son. Acknowledge his Son. And that, for the great part, has not happened yet. Has not happened yet. So might be a grand idea why we haven't the tribulation yet and we haven't gone through that. Because all this is to the fulfillment of the Gentiles. That's what I'm telling you. Another great piece of something I really liked reading here was, now we go back to chapter 24. And it mentions the families and the names of the priests who attended during the time of Yeshua being born. And one of them is chapter 24, verse 10. The 7th to Hatkos, the 8th to Abijah, Abijah, Abijah. What's Abijah got to do with it? Well, that has to do with John the Immerser's father. He was in the temple at the time, tending it because he was a priest among the priests of Abijah, and he had his time to serve. And so where was he during that particular time, either 5 or 6 BCE? He was in the temple. And how long did he stay? Well, he stayed about 6 to 8 weeks. So when did he get to go home? Well, sometime in late May, June, for not Sukkot, but for the Pentecost, the coming of the laws, the second feast area. And lo and behold, what happens then? His wife gets pregnant. And lo and behold, how long did it take? Well, 9 months. And lo and behold, when was he going to be born, John the Baptist? Well, that would be the following year, which would be about 4 or 5 BCE. And Elizabeth bore John the Immerser. And then during that period of time, after that, he had the months up there, and Miriam, goes to visit her cousin, and lo and behold, to tend to her because of the pregnancy and the birth. And she's already pregnant. So she's about 3 months along, which means she got impregnated somewhere around December. And she had a child, Yeshua, somewhere around the 20th and 29th of September. Sukkot. Does this making sense? All this stuff you pull out of a very detailed man. His name is Ezra. It is a great book to read. All right. Shabbat Shalom.